Well, we've now traded strikes with Iran for the second day since the peace agreement has completely collapsed. And now we are even closer to what could be a catastrophe. The U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve is now at 19 million barrels, and it is 19 million barrels away from estimated minimum operating levels is what this is showing us. You can see where it says, let me just pull this up full screen. This chart, by the way, goes all the way back to 1989 is the first year on the chart. Let me just go ahead and remove this lower third for you so you can take a look at it. And it goes all the way up into where we are today. And we are here is the yellow arrow. We are really close to that red line. So the strategic petroleum reserves are almost to the point where we don't have any reserves. So what exactly does this mean? Well, does it mean we're not going to have any more oil? No, we produce quite a bit of oil as a country. But what it does mean is we will.
I'm pretty sure I've seen multiple oil refineries go up in flames over the last several months, not to mention Walmart and Costco have both made statements about lack of oil for their shelves coming soon.
Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of oil refinery problems. Whether or not they're down long term or not, I don't know. But I also heard from, I believe it was Toyota, saying that, oh, well, the oil for these cars may not be available for much longer, so just basically put the next weight heavier in it.
Yeah, because that was a lot of the Toyota vehicles that require, what, 010?
Yeah, like 0W7 or
06.
something. Yeah.
Something thinner than water.
We'll see inflation when, Donald Trump actually said, he even said that we were, I believe, 2 weeks away. Let me actually look at the calendar. It was June 17th that Donald Trump said we were 4 weeks away from running out of oil. And 4 weeks would be next week, the 15th. And we're on the 9th today. So by next Wednesday, apparently the strategic reserves will hit that red line by next Wednesday. And that means that prices are going to go up. When people, the market, we still have oil. It's not like we've run out of oil, but markets are very reactionary. So when they know that the government can't whisk in and release more oil barrels in order to boost the economy back up, they start pricing things like, oh no, we're at that point. We don't have any reserves left. We have no money in the bank, basically. So we're living paycheck to paycheck. And if a crisis hits, we have enough oil to keep ourselves functioning on a day-to-day, but if a crisis hits, just very much like living paycheck to paycheck.
It's interesting that on that graph it shows the minimum oil for the reserve, but I'm curious to see what the daily amount of oil used is. I know the Navy is one of the largest users of petroleum products there is.
Not to mention all of the airplanes that are flying on a daily basis or public transport.
But this is also like reflects into everything because the transportation system is so heavily reliant on it. So all of our food and everything to the grocery stores, every single semi truck you see running down the road. I mean, look at the price of diesel and look at all the trucks, and they're going hundreds of thousands of miles, moving back and forth. So,
and they can only try and replace them so quick with fully electric ones, which you still need oil to build the fully electric semi trucks anyway.
I mean, that's its own topic, in my opinion, with the way they get lithium and stuff and strip mining
Agreed.
and whatnot is way more harmful to the environment, in my opinion. But that's a whole nother topic.
Absolutely.
Hits, you're screwed. And one thing that is a crisis is keeping the Strait of Hormuz closed. Our war with Iran, them closing the Strait of Hormuz, helped get us to that point. It didn't entirely get us to that point. Let's go ahead and pull that chart back up. It didn't entirely get us to that point. That big dip that you see, that waterfall dip before we get to, and then it kind of built back up a little bit, and now we're back down. That happened in 2022. And that was, COVID was a lot. I think this really started falling off a cliff. It looks like 2020 is when it started dropping, and then it really dropped again in 2022. So from 2020 on is when we see.
It's interesting if you look back about 2014, 2016, in that era is when I would think it really starts to turn down, because it does dip down 2017 and then it never comes back up above that line. We know that 2014 is when the Russia war actually started. So maybe that has something to do with it.
The Russian war started back in 2014?
Yeah. Yeah, well, supposedly, because NATO expansion. Russia's thing is don't put missiles on my border, and NATO said, yeah, while inching closer and closer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Plus, in 2014, the Ukrainians had a coup happen in their government, ousting a Russian-leaning president, and then Zelensky. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, always got to overthrow and put somebody that leans towards the U.S. in power, right?
COVID, we also had the Russia-Ukraine war, and that caused a massive dip. Then we started seeing things climb back up, starting in, looks like late 2022, early 2023. And here we are today at a point where we're closer to the red line than we've ever been. So anything for Israel, essentially, is what this boils down to. We should not be in this war with Iran. We should be packing our bags and going home. We should say, all right, Trump has announced a million times, we've obliterated their ability to create a nuke. We have obliterated their military. Okay, good. Job done. Go home. And then we can have the Strait of Hormuz open back up, and we cannot get so close to the red line, because once we get over that red line, we are going to see an increase in gas prices, which, of course, is going to mean an increase in food prices. It means some people are going to be laid off because companies can't afford all the extra gas for the transportation. We're going to see an increase in airline airfare. Everything's going to go up because we're out of reserves. We don't have any money in the bank. So what are we doing? That's the big question. It seems like we're doing anything and everything for Israel. And to make this point, I want to play for you this clip. So Donald Trump said, you might have remembered this just from the other day, that they're wanting to remove Syria from the state sponsor list. Now, Syria, the guy that's in charge of Syria was Al-Qaeda and ISIS. He literally killed Americans. And we've now handed a country over to him because Israel likes him, because he's working alongside the Israelis, is doing whatever the Israelis want. They like him. They didn't like Assad, who was against them. So they would rather have an Al-Qaeda ISIS leader that's in charge of Syria than to have, an actual democratic leader, somebody who's supposedly with our Western values. They didn't put that person in. But this isn't the important point. I just want to share with you this as a refresher. Here's Trump talking about removing Syria, the Al-Qaeda ISIS guy who killed Americans, removing them from the state terror list.
Are you going to remove Syria from the state sponsor of terrorism list?
I think I will, yeah. I think I will. Why wouldn't I? He's done a great job. Maybe he would have brought that up in a little while. That's a good question, yeah. Any problems with that? I think we should. Yeah, I will.
Okay. Now, not only is he talking about removing them from the state sponsor of terror list, but while sitting next to him at this meeting, Donald Trump actually talks about how great he's been for Israel. Because remember, this guy's only in power of Syria. The guy who killed Americans is only in power in Syria because Israel wanted him there. So Trump now goes off and talks about Israel. And in his conversation, he mentions the Golan Heights. Now, pay attention to what he says about the Golan Heights. And remember that the Golan Heights are actually a part of Syria. It's land that the Israelis grabbed from Syria as Trump is sitting next.
I find it interesting that how interconnected everything is. Everybody, she's talking about this ISIS leader, but it wasn't that long ago, I believe in the 70s, that the United States was actually helping ISIS because they were at war with Russia when Russia invaded Afghanistan. So people seem to not understand that we fund our enemies, that we fund these groups until they're no longer useful, and then they're enemies.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can look back at any terrorist organization basically across the decades, and at some point the U.S. funded them.
To the so-called president of Syria, this is what he has to say about Israel and their land grab of his territory.